So games with subpoena. We could see by the video that one of the neighbors had his truck parked by his shack on that fateful day. What that means is that Adam Clayton was in his house at the time. Every man owes society his testimony, and what we needed from Adam Clayton was at the very least a denial of his witnessing of the fact, or whatever observations he had seen or heard on that day. Reminds me of the quote, "The public has a right to every man's evidence, and every person owes society his testimony unless a privilege is asserted." I noticed a phenomenon during the 3-day proceedings. If a person respected the subpoena and came to court, well, Michael allowed it, and he expected them to come the next day. There was a guy that came all the way from Aurora. That's at least a 4-hour drive. And since he respected the subpoena, he had to come back the next day as well. But if they didn't show up or wrote a letter saying they didn't want to come, he respected that. Those who ignored him and just didn't show up at all, he couldn't or wouldn't compel them to do so. There is no punishment for those who blatantly refuse to honor a court process, such as Phil Greeny. Phil Greeny, who flat out ignored a legally delivered subpoena, a properly and rightfully legally delivered subpoena, and therefore he ignored the will of the court. Why wasn't Michael Gonzales mad about that? Only those who respect the laws and the purported ideals of the system get screwed. But those who don't respect the laws get their life, liberty, and property protected? That makes no sense. So the lawful people, they're the ones who have to obey the law with everybody else, but the criminals don't have to obey the law with anybody? It's like Michael Gonzales is taking people's respect for a good and honest and just system and using that respect against themselves. Michael told the guy from Aurora that he could request the court to waive his subpoena or get a lawyer. Well, the guy wrote a letter, and then Michael rejected the letter. The guy still had to come to court, and the main purpose for him coming to court, since it was my subpoena, was to ask him about planning and zoning. When Michael had barred me from talking about planning and zoning, therefore, there is no reason for the guy from Aurora to come to court. So Michael made a guy drive down from Aurora at least 2 or 3 days in a row. Why? Because he respected the law. He respected the subpoena. And yet, when it came to Phil Greeny, who said that he was going to go get a gun, he was going to go to get a gun to shoot my mother and I. That's what Phil Greeny was going to go do. Well, Michael Gonzales thought that was okay. It was okay for Phil Greeny to stalk me all the live long day. Every time I went to go work on my fence, there he is. Is he going to shoot me? Is he going to rob me? Is he going to try to drive me over? Who knows? Who gives a shit, right? Because we're going to protect the criminals. Christopher Mondragon, has he been captured yet? Michael Gonzales doesn't care about right or wrong. He doesn't care about lawful or illegal. He doesn't care about criminal or good. The guy wrote the letter. So, the guy still had to come to court. He made him drive all the way down from Aurora. Let's see here. Just to sit outside of in his truck. So the DA ordered the pointless sequestration. So he came all the way down from Aurora, had to sit outside the courtroom in his truck for 2 or 3 days, probably 3 days. That's a 4-hour drive. Who's got the gas? Who's got the time? Who's got 3 days to just kill to sit outside? And then the sequestration. She says that like Oz. She gets on the intercom system, right? Where's that room at? So she gets to hide behind the plexiglass like, oh, I'm too scared. It's ridiculous that they're going to sit there and say a cop can do no wrong. If a cop kidnaps a person, the DA and the judge thinks it's their job to cover that cop's ass. That's what they think their job is. Well, the cops think that they work for the judge and the DA. So which is it? It's actually the cops work for the executive branch. And the judicial branch is actually the judgment. According to Montesquieu, the judicial branch is next to nearly nothing when it comes to the executive and the legislative branch. But the guy who clearly said, fuck you, Michael Gonzales, the guy who would have been absolutely vital, he committed crime after crime. You would have put him on stand. You would have seen how big of a fucking prick he was. He's a lying piece of shit. You would have caught him in a perjury. You would have caught him in a lie. You would have caught him in a contempt charge. And he also committed crime after crime after crime. So either he would have had to have known to have pled the Fifth Amendment, or he would have just flat out lied about it. But he didn't even show up for court because fuck Michael Gonzales. That's what he thinks. And so the people that say fuck Michael Gonzales well, they don't have to go to court. They don't have to testify what they had seen. And so it's just this adversarial position. I can understand a civil case when you have private lawyers, but the government, it shouldn't be as adversarial. The truth, the objective foundation of the truth is needed in order to get an objective justice. You can't have objective justice without objective truth. So Michael Gonzales made the guy from Aurora, waste his time 3 days, and then the main fucking witness, Phil Greeny, didn't have to show up at all. And if we read the 6th Amendment, this is for Michael Gonzales and Anne Kelley. It says, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial, but it also says to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. And to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Well, let's listen to this 90-second Civics 6th Amendment guy. He'll say the same thing. To be
confronted with the witnesses against him, to have a compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor.
So the Constitution of America says that you have a right to compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor. Phil Greeny was a bastard. Phil Greeny was a piece of shit. But he would have been a good witness for me. Why? Because he would have told enough of the truth. But since he's a criminal motherfucker and Michael Gonzales doesn't give a damn about the truth, Michael Gonzales is trying to cover up for his buddy Soto Cruz, it doesn't make any sense. A cop goes in and makes an arrest. If they made a mistake, they made a mistake. The public will forgive them, But for people to double down on a lie and to keep on doubling down on a lie just for the fucking fuck of it, just because their friend is Troy Zinn, just because Keith Schultz and Kenny Capon are best friends, just because Soto Cruz and Troy Zinn are best friends, we're supposed to believe? And these are right-wing sovereigns, but you can't ask that question either. Well, why would they hate me? Because I'm not a right-wing sovereign. I've read the Constitution. I'm not making it up as I go along. So Adam Clayton, he wrote a letter. There was another absentee landlord who had written a letter too. And we're going to go ahead and let the absentee landlord go. We're going to let Adam Clayton go. These are good witnesses. These are good witnesses. The guy from Aurora, if I'm talking about planning and zoning, but we're not going to, why aren't we going to talk about planning and zoning? Because Susie Lucero. Susie Lucero fucking lied. She's a lying piece of shit. So you pay your damn planning and zoning permits. You would think that gets you good. That gets you good with the planning and zoning office. And then heck, maybe I'll get the EMS and the fire service and the police service that they have too. This is a good lawful man, and he's actually doing his due diligence. He read the laws, and here he is paying, even though we didn't go chase him down and we didn't serve him and we didn't have to do any of the shit. Adam Clayton writes a letter saying he's in Arizona, so he couldn't go to court. Oh, okay, for 2 or 3 fucking years he was in Costilla County for months at a time. He bought water illegally from Troy Zinn. He was a part of this shit. Now, he did help me find Tim Tim, my dog, one time. And so it's like, you do a little bad, do some good. It's like, you got to balance this shit out. He owned land there for 10 years. So Adam Clayton was there. You see his truck right there on the film. The one film, all you see is me driving away from Joe Canty. He's claiming that I'm sitting there shooting at him. But if I'm shooting at him, then why am I just driving away from his house? If I'm shooting, none of it's all fucking bullshit. Michael Gonzales and Anne Kelley thought it was important to take a liar's lie and shove it down the public's throat. They took the lie of a liar. And why? Just to protect their police buddy. And the police buddy is just protecting his right-wing sovereign buddies. And nobody gives a shit about the truth or justice, or nobody has any virtues. Adam Clayton was there in his house when Joe Canty and I met for the first time. He's right there on videotape. The absentee landlord of Nick and Noah's land didn't go to court. How convenient. He nor they were concerned about planning and zoning. They got mad at me for just talking about planning and zoning. So there I am, setting a good example for the neighborhood, saying, hey, I'm being lawful, you should be lawful too. Not really, I'm saying I'm being lawful, but you should just be moral. You don't have to be as lawful as me. But I'm just setting too good of an example. So they're getting pissed off at me for following planning and zoning. Susie Lucero from planning and zoning is one to fuck me over. And because Susie Lucero said that she wasn't properly, she said I subpoenaed her myself. Yeah, well, she says all this behind closed doors, behind the scenes, and then Michael Gonzales says, well, you can't talk about planning and zoning. So planning and zoning ain't fucking law, and isn't the law? I read that 100 pages of planning and zoning for nothing, for no reason. He's cheating. He's cheating to cover up her lies. She said that I had subpoenaed her when the process server had subpoenaed her. Susie Lucera's a lying piece of shit, and so is that Colleen Romero. She's a fucking piece of shit as well. She robbed me of $600 fucking dollars. Oh, you're a good man and you're honest? Well, give me $600. Hey, Colleen Romero, why aren't you asking Troy Zinn for his fucking goddamn? Did he do a septic tank design? Did you get $600 from him? You would actually have the force of law to do that. And it would be justified because the law is the law. But if you got a fucking judge like this who doesn't give a shit about the laws, who's going to cover up his buddies, that'd been a good opportunity for Susie Lucera just to say, hey, you know, we have a limited amount of resources. We can only do so much. Just to kind of tell the court and tell the world what she has to go through. If you're a good and fair person. But if you're a piece of shit and you just want to goddamn commit crimes and then lie to the judge about your fucking lies and your crimes and then get away with your criminal bullshit, they denied me so much of my constitutional rights. It wasn't even fucking funny. They're shoving a liar's lie down the public's throat. They didn't give a fuck about any of the videotapes of the crime. So if you kidnap a person and you got a badge, well, that's probable cause of a crime. But if you have documentation, 911 calls, photographs, and videotapes, you got piles and piles and piles of motherfucking evidence. Somehow that doesn't convince Michael Gonzales or Anne Kelley of jack shit. If you want a better society, then the people should be allowed to press charges. The court and the people should have the protection of the cops. They should have the protection of the courts. And if they don't have the protection of the cops and the protection of the courts, then they need the right to defend themselves. For them to do a private police action. The absentee landlord. So all these people didn't go because they wrote a letter and Michael Gonzales respected it. Also because it helped my case. The people that would help my case the most. Oh, Adam Clayton wrote a letter. Okay, it's all right. You can just not show up for court. Yeah, just fucking dismiss him. Tell him he doesn't have to do what he's supposed to do. Tell the absentee landlord he doesn't do what he needs to do. Tell Susie Lucera and Phil Greeny they don't need to do what they need to do. But make that poor young man from Aurora come down 3 fucking days for no fucking reason because of Susie Lucera's lies and because he covers up their lies. And if planning and zoning isn't law, then why the fuck was I sitting there worrying about it for fucking years? That's all I thought about when I got there. Oh shit, I gotta hurry up and get this done. It's gotta be progress. I got 3 months to do this and do that. Fucking ordered a goddamn septic tank from all the way from motherfucking Aurora or Denver or some fucking Pueblo or some shit. Had to goddamn pay a fucking asshole to dig a big asshole. Had to pay the planning and zoning motherfuckers. By the time that I had all this shit legal and proper, I didn't have enough money to finish my house. What the fuck is right about any of this shit? You think the person that called 911 and the person that followed the planning and zoning was the bad guy? But the 200 crimes that was documented, none of that fucking mattered? So Phil Greeny's aunt didn't have to come. Adam Clayton didn't have to come. Robert Pickerel didn't have to come. Phil Greeny himself didn't have to come. So these are eyewitnesses. There was 4 eyewitnesses to the thing. Pickerel, Phil Greeny and his fucking aunt. Pickerel, they want to fucking fuck around with me as that shit's happening. But we're not going to get them into the courtroom? Why are you all protecting? And then the owner of that house was a Gonzales too. So it makes me think, Michael Gonzales? Was that your brother? Is that a cousin? Are you related to the Gonzales that owns Jacqueline Mitchell's old house where Phil Greeny lived and his aunt? These 2 people are eyewitnesses. And I think I saw Nick or Noah over there outside their homes. So that's 4 eyewitnesses. Phil Greeny did not observe it, but he had a picture. He comes up the next day saying he's got a photograph. Oh, I saw what you did. Yeah, and he's going to sit there and come marching up on my property. So if I fire a warning shot then, what if I punch him in his fucking mouth? Can he come up onto my property and then claim assault? But then, oh man, this shit is such fucking bullshit and it's so fucking disgusting and it's so fucking wrong. Nick Villela didn't have to go to fucking court. He did. He did go to court. And in a way, you know, I could have done a better job as my own lawyer. But just having the fucking world against you, it's like, goddamn. Where the fuck is my confidence and, my wellspring of my own goodness? I just have to keep on regenerating the wellspring of my own goodness and then get my confidence from it? Is that what I was supposed to do? Because it'd been nice to have a damn witness. So he didn't shoot at me. But Robert Pickerel was riding shotgun in the truck of the person who did shoot at me. The driver had shot at me, and Robert Pickerel knows who that driver is. And he should be charged as well, not for just that, but for other shit, aiding and abetting, for being an accomplice, for stalking, for menacing, for tailgating. The public has a right to every man's evidence, and every person owes society his testimony unless a privilege is asserted. The public has a right to every man's evidence, and every person owes society his testimony unless a privilege is asserted. Brandsburg v. Hayes. The court then reaffirmed prior Massachusetts holdings that testimonial privileges were exceptional and limited, stating that the principle that the public has a right to every man's evidence had usually been preferred in the Commonwealth to countervailing interest. The court rejected the holding of the Ninth Circuit in Caldwell v. United States, Supra, and adhered to the view that there exists no constitutional newsman's privilege, either qualified or absolute, to refuse to appear and testify before a court or grand jury. So when it comes to nullifying freedom of the press, we're going to make sure that the newspaper man comes in and tells us what he knows. But when it comes to these fucking goddamn criminal motherfuckers, Jordan Peterson says that people don't respect good and lawful, they respect dangerous. So the cops are a bunch of pussies, and so's the damn judge, and so's the DA. They're not going after the fucking criminals. They would rather fuck over a straight-A student who got valedictorian, who called 911, who followed planning and zoning to the fucking letter because a cop kidnapped them, and they think it's their job to shove a liar's lie, down the people's throat to cover up the arrest of a police officer. Oh, a cop arrested you? Well, now we get to play judge and lawyer. Now we get to play clerk and fuck you the fuck over. But when I brought you motherfuckers evidence of crimes, why didn't you want to play judge and clerk and prosecutor then? Why didn't you want to be a cop then? Why the fuck did you sign up to be a cop? To ignore there's 46,000 people in the SLV. And if we're only going to listen to the cops and lawyers, if that's all the DA and the judge thinks that they got to listen to, you have a right to the access to the courts, according to Colorado's Constitution, Section 6 of Article 2. So there's 46,000 people and only 100 lawyers and cops are heard. And if they know the lawyer, they know the cop, then maybe they'll, carry on with the fucking charge. If you kidnap the body, they'll go ahead and be a bunch of fucking assholes. You walk into court and nobody knows anything. Everybody's looking the other way. They're not making eye contact with you. They're raping the shit out of you. They're raping and reaming the holy hell out of you because you were arrested. They got the body, so now they're going to fuck over the body. But a criminal whose body they can't capture or can't kidnap or didn't do the investigation to find out the truth, well, who gives a shit? Maybe if they witnessed this shit, maybe they would have done something, but I even wonder then too. Maybe they were a part of it. Maybe they were setting it up. Maybe they were back at the house laughing the whole fucking time. Yeah, I'm supposed to believe that Keith Schultz, he says Kenny Capon's a fucking little angel, a little puppy dog. What was his precise words? He said something like, he's a sweetheart. Yeah, Kenny Capon is a sweetheart, huh? Oh, such a fucking sweet, nice guy. Oh, Troy Zinn, just like butter, just the kindest, salt of the earth kind of person. Just such a good, decent man. Bullshit, he's a bitch-ass bitch. He don't give a fuck about right, he doesn't give a fuck about truth, and he doesn't care about America or freedom or establishing justice. So, that's Games with Subpoena, and I got more coming up in a second.